Hi guys, it's Alice, and today I'm going to talk about the books I read in the last part of February. Now, I actually feel like I haven't really been reading as much as I usually do in the past few weeks, and I think that's probably because I've lost a lot of time watching Real Housewives. But I do have 3 books to talk about today, and the first one is The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee. This is a non-fiction book, and it spans the whole globe and several centuries, and it explores the history and the science of genes. This was a really interesting book, but it was also kind of exhausting to read, I'm not gonna lie. I've never really known all that much about genetics, and I was excited to learn more about it, and I feel like this book taught me a lot. I especially enjoyed reading about the very early history of it, as well as reading about the newest developments. One thing I think is really interesting about this topic is the moral and ethical implications of things like gene manipulation. And there's a lot of things going on in this field right now, which is mind-blowing as well as a little worrying. It's clear that this is an incredibly well-researched book, and it is thorough, which is fine, but it was a little bit of information overload for me sometimes. It's mostly accessible and easy to understand, but there are parts in here that are quite dry and a little boring and a little hard to get through, to be honest. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the necessary terms and stuff like that, at least it was for me. So although this is a fascinating topic and it's a very good book, it was kind of tough for me to get through, and it feels kind of long. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's great to read if you're interested in the topic though. The second book I read was Heroes by Stephen Fry. This is a non-fiction book, and it's a sort of companion to Mythos, and in it Fry retells the ancient myths of the Greek heroes. Mythos was one of my favorite books that I read last year, and when I saw that this was coming out I was so excited, and it did not disappoint. Now, I think I probably prefer the stories of Greek gods more than that of mortals, because sometimes I find it a little exhausting to figure out their families and where they're all coming from, but this was still really enjoyable and so entertaining, and Fry has a way of storytelling that just makes everything so much fun. I feel like you can really tell that Fry is passionate and enthusiastic about Greek myths, and it radiates off the page, both in this and in the previous one. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I would highly recommend it, and I hope that he writes more of these because I want to read them all. Lastly, I finished Secrets of the Italian Gardener by Andrew Crofts. This is a novella, and it was actually sent to me by the publisher, and it's about a ghostwriter who has been hired by the wealthy dictator of a Middle Eastern country to tell his side of the story. And while he's at the palace working on this project, he becomes friends with a gardener who works at the palace, and this guy tells him all of these secrets about both the regime and its leader. This was a really interesting and kind of disturbing book, and I don't really know if I loved it or not, but it really made me think. It's quite a short book, but there is a lot going on in here, and the characters are really interesting. They feel very complex, and it's kind of hard to know what to make of them. Like, it's hard to figure out if you agree with them or not, or if you even like them or not, or if you should like them or not, which is very intriguing. There's also an atmosphere of unease throughout all of this that I thought was great, and I love the theme of gardens and gardening that's carried throughout all of this. Now, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, but it might be more of a 4-star book. I can't really tell. It's one of those books that's just really hard to rate because I can't make up my mind about it. But I think that I will be thinking about it for a really long time. I'd actually love to know if any of you have read it and what you thought of it, because I think it's a really interesting book. Now on to the books that I'm currently reading. Because it's March Mystery Madness, I have started And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which is of course a mystery. And I'm also reading Short Poems of New Zealand, which is a poetry collection. Okay guys, those are all the books that I had to talk about today. I'd love to know what you all have been reading this month and what was your favorite book that you read, and I will see you soon. Bye!